Hey guys, I'm Untitled Tech Chap, and as I was coming home from Apple's big WWDC conference, which was incredible by the way, it's my first time there, I got this message, which I think is the question we're all asking after they unveil the new MacBook Air M2. Is the M2 worth buying, or should you maybe just save some money and go with the, I've got so many laptops here, go with the M1, which is still on sale and a bit cheaper, or is it actually worth paying more and getting MacBook Pro 14. There were a lot of questions, and also since my hands-on where I sort of gave my first impressions, I've had a few more thoughts. Now, if you have been living under a rock, the headline upgrades with the new MacBook Air M2 is, well, as it says on the tin, we have the new faster M2 chip. It's also slightly thinner and lighter. We get a brighter screen, up from 400 to 500 nits. Also much thinner bezels, complete with the love or hate it notch. But it does mean we have a slightly bigger 13.6-inch screen now, up from 13.3. We also have a new and improved 1080p webcam. We get MagSafe, we get better speakers. There's two new colors, Starlight and a very snazzy Midnight. And also slightly less exciting, but also a full height function row on the keyboard. The question is though, is it worth paying $200 or £250 more than this? This is the current MacBook Air M1, which is still on sale for $999. They haven't discounted it, although across all models, if you are a teacher or a student, you can get 100 off. But this is still going to be on sale side by side with the new M2. The problem is though, and perhaps one area I got it, well, a little bit wrong in my hands-on video, was suggesting that if you are going to buy a new MacBook Air M2, is that you're going to want 16 gigs RAM and maybe 512 storage. That was the sort of sweet spot. The only reason I said that, particularly for the 16 gigs of memory, is that on this one, which has 8 gigabytes, often I do get errors saying it's run out of memory and I have to close applications. Although I am curious if the higher bandwidth speeds of the new unified memory in the M2 version will make much of a difference, or if indeed it is still worth going for 16 gigs. But anyway, my original point. Once you spec the M2 Air up to that sweet spot, you're only £250 shy of this, the MacBook Pro 14. I'm gonna have to make this quick, I've only got 5% battery on this, but the MacBook Pro 14 is still quite a big upgrade over the MacBook Air, even with the M2, because we've got the mini LED screen, so much deeper blacks, and also it's much brighter, up to 1000 nits. This supports HDR, the MacBook still doesn't. Also, we have the 120Hz ProMotion and the M1 Pro chip. So the big question really, I think, is what is the difference in performance between the M2 and the M1 Pro? That is something, of course, I'll be testing properly when I get my review unit. The Pro also gives you more ports. We have the full-size SD card reader, full-size HDMI, we get an extra USB-C Thunderbolt, and also unique to the Pros is the ability to output to more than one external display. It's one of the first questions I asked Apple in my hands-on. Could the new MacBook Air M2 output to 2 displays? And the answer is no, still not. That is reserved for the Pro models. Could be worth paying the extra for the Pro 14. There is also another elephant in the room, and it's called the MacBook Pro 13, which also comes with the new M2 chip, but otherwise has not really changed. Now, I don't know who's gonna buy that. I think honestly, it's gonna be a lot of people going into stores thinking, hey, I want the Pro model, this is the cheapest Pro model, I'll take that. But it's not going to be really the best option, I think, for most people. The only real advantage to it over the M2 Air is the fact that it has a fan. So under sustained loads, if you're gaming or you're rendering, you may get slightly better performance. But honestly, for my tests of the current generation MacBooks between the fanless Air and the Fan Pro 13, there isn't that much difference. It's just like a few percent. So I really don't know who's going to buy the MacBook Pro 13. Hopefully I'll be getting a review sample though. There may be some redeeming quality or some sort of price advantage, but that's something we'll have to test in the full review. But then there is this. This is the Dell XPS 13 Plus, which I would say is probably the closest competitor to the new MacBook Air M2. There are other options like the new Asus ZenBook 13S OLED, which I also reviewed recently, and I'll leave a little link to if you fancy. I'm going to be reviewing this as well, but you have to admit that is the most futuristic looking laptop I think I've ever seen. Function row lit up at the top, reminiscent of the touch bar, not necessarily a good thing. And also, I'm not sure if I love the keyboard here. There is no gap between the keys. It means the keycaps are bigger, but it's a little bit hard to sort of figure out physically where your hands are. Anyway, it took me a while to get used to. But with the 13 Plus, we're getting a touchscreen. It's also an OLED display. We're still LCD on the Air, and it still doesn't even support HDR, which is a bit disappointing. And also, well, I just love the design of this. However, the upside of the Air, and I am pointing towards this, but I'm referring to the new M2 Air, is that we have a much better webcam. There really isn't a better webcam on a laptop at that price. It's also completely silent because there isn't a fan inside, and as soon as I was setting this up in Windows and downloading updates, I could hear the fan whir up, Going from the Air, that just kind of feels like a dinosaur. I also love the scissor mechanism keyboard we get on MacBooks. It is my favorite keyboard at the moment. And one big advantage of both the M2 and also the M1 to some extent is that we have that video rendering engine. So when it comes to my workflow, which is primarily editing these videos in Premiere Pro and using Photoshop and Lightroom, there are no other laptops like the MacBooks that can scrub through my 4K 10-bit H.264 video like a MacBook, even the Air. Now I tend to use the Pro 16 as my main laptop. I actually have a pretty high-end desktop over there with a 3080 and a 12th gen Intel processor. But for editing, I always want to go back to the MacBook or maybe the Mac Studio. This is pretty much the same price as the MacBook Air M2. There are some slight differences depending on what country you're in, and also on the higher spec, this actually comes out a little bit cheaper in the UK, but really it's going to come down to what software you prefer, Mac OS versus Windows 11. So there's a lot to think about, but I think for most people, the overarching question will be, should I go for the M1 MacBook Air and pay a little bit less, or the M2, assuming of course you don't already have one of these? Well, I can't say for sure until I get the new one to test, but one of the big advantages that I think will influence people's decisions is that new webcam, as we're all working from home and hybrid working, and of course the new M2 Air has that new 1080p webcam with better low light image quality because of the ISP in the M2. However, all new Macs will be getting the Mac OS Ventura software later in the year, which along with iOS 16 on the iPhone allows you to use your phone's camera as a webcam. I haven't properly been able to try this yet, but it would sort of negate one of the advantages of the Air if you are just happy to use your phone as the webcam instead. It's also interesting that the battery life hasn't really changed with the new M2 Air. According to Apple, in terms of video playback and light use cases, it's about the same. They quote 18 hours of video playback, although when it comes to graphically demanding tasks, because the new M2 Air I think can actually draw up to 15 watts compared to 12 watts here, that may actually reduce battery life a little bit. Although the flip side of that argument is if it completes a task quicker, say rendering, then maybe it doesn't draw as much battery because this takes longer. But to be honest with you, I'm not bothered at all. Battery life is already incredible on the M1 Air. And actually the transition from the Intel Air to this, I think, was the most revolutionary upgrade in a laptop I've seen in the last 10 years. It really is insane. And yes, I know this has slightly chunky bezels, the webcam isn't the best in the world, but this is still the absolute best all-round 13-inch laptop you can buy. And if you are a teacher or student, you can get this for $899, which is insane. It is all you need. Obviously, the new M2 Air will be a little bit faster, it's a little bit sleeker, we've got the better webcam, although you can always use your phone going forward. So I just don't know if it is going to be worth paying that $200, £250 more for the new Air. I think for most people, this is still going to be all you need. And for anyone who needs some proper pro levels of performance along with that mini LED 120Hz screen and all the extras, then the Pro 14 or 16 is still going to be a better option. So where does that leave us as I ramble along for 10 minutes? Well, I don't know, we'll have to see. No judgments just yet until I get my samples in to test properly. There's a lot to talk about, but whether it remains the best value option for most of us, we'll have to see. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you do want to see more from me, including all my upcoming reviews and comparisons, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you next time right here on the Tech Chat.